Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Verse 10. Again, it's Canto 2, Chapter 9, Verse 10. So we'll be continuing in Chapter 9, basically. Okay. Pravartate yatra rajastamastayo Sattvam cha mishram na chakala vikrama Nayatra maya kim utapare hare Anuvrata yatra sura sura archita. Word by word, meaning Pravartate, prevail. Yatra, wherein. Rajatama, the modes of passion and ignorance. Tayo, of both of them. Sattvam, the modes of goodness. Ja, and. Mishram, mixture. Na, never. Ja, and. Kala, time. Vikrama, influence. Na, neither. Yatra, therein. Maya, illusory external energy. Kim, what? Uta, there is. Apare, others. Hare, of the personality of Godhead. Anuvrata, devotees. Yatra, wherein. Sura, by the demigods. Asura, and the demons. Archita, worshipped. Translation. In that personal abode of the Lord, the material modes of ignorance and passion do not prevail, nor is there any of their influence in goodness. There is no predominance of the influence of time. I'm just going to share my screen, sorry. Okay. Yeah. There is no predominance of the influence of time. So what to speak of the illusory external energy? It cannot enter that region. Without discrimination, both the demigods and the demons worship the Lord as devotees. I'm going to read the translation one more time. In that personal abode of the Lord, the material modes of ignorance and passion do not prevail, nor is there any of their influence in goodness. There is no predominance of the influence of time. So what to speak of the illusory external energy? It cannot enter that region. Without discrimination, both the demigods and the demons worship the Lord as devotees. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The kingdom of God, or the atmosphere of the Vaikunta nature, which is called Drupad Vibhuti, is 3 times bigger than the material universes and is described here, as also in the Bhagavad Gita in a nutshell. This universe containing billions of stars and planets is one of the billions of such universes clustered together within the compass of the Mahatattva. And all these millions and billions of universes combined together constitute only 1/4 of the magnitude of the whole creation of the Lord. There is this spiritual sky also. Beyond this sky are the spiritual planets under the names of Vaikunta, and all of them constitute 3/4 of the entire creation of the Lord. God's creations are always innumerable. Even the leaves of a tree cannot be counted by a man, nor can the hairs on his head. However foolish men are puffed up with the idea of becoming God himself, though unable to create a hair of their own bodies. Man may discover so many wonderful vehicles of journey, but even if he reaches the boon by his much advertised spacecraft, he cannot remain there. The sane man, therefore, without being puffed up, as if he were the God of the universe, abides by the instructions of the Vedic literature, the easiest way to acquire knowledge in transcendence. So let us know through the authority of Srimad Bhagavatam of the nature and constitution of the transcendental world beyond the material sky. In that sky, the material qualities, especially the modes of ignorance and passion, are completely absent. The mode of ignorance influences a living entity to the habit of lust and hankering, and this means that in the Vaikunta lokas, the living entities are free from these two things. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Brahma-bhuta stage of life, one becomes free from hankering and lamentation. Therefore, the conclusion is that the inhabitants of the Vaikunta planets are all Brahma-bhuta living entities, as distinguished from the mundane creatures who are all compact in hankering and lamentation. When one is not in the modes of ignorance and passion, one is supposed to be situated in the mode of goodness in the material world. Goodness in the material world also at times becomes contaminated by the touches of the modes of passion and ignorance. In the Vaikunta loka, it is unalloyed goodness only. The whole situation there is one of freedom from the illusory manifestation of the external energy. Although illusory energy is also part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, illusory energy is differentiated from the Lord. The illusory energy is not, however, false as claimed by the monist philosophers. The rope accepted as a snake may be an illusion to a particular person, but the rope is a fact, and the snake is also a fact. The illusion of water on the hot desert may be illusion for the ignorant animals searching for water in the desert, but the desert and water are actual facts. Therefore, the material creation of the Lord may be an illusion to the non-devotee, but to a devotee, even the material creation of the Lord is a fact, as a manifestation of his external energy. But this energy of the Lord is not all. The Lord has his internal energy also, which has another creation known to be the Vaikunta lokas, where there is no ignorance, no passion, no illusion, and no past and present. With a poor fund of knowledge, one may be unable to understand the existence of such things as the Vaikunta atmosphere, but that does not nullify its existence. That spacecraft cannot reach these planets does not mean that there are no such planets, for they are described in the revealed scriptures. As quoted by Srila Jiva Goswami, we can know from Narada Pancharatra that the transcendental world, or Vaikunta atmosphere, is enriched with transcendental qualities. These transcendental qualities, as revealed through the devotional service of the Lord, are distinct from the mundane qualities of ignorance, passion, and goodness. Such qualities are not attainable by the non-devotee class of men. In the Padma Purana, Uttarakhanda, it is stated that beyond the 1/4 part of God's creation is a 3/4 manifestation. The marginal line between the material manifestation and the spiritual manifestation is the Viraja river. And beyond the Viraja, which is a transcendental current flowing from the perspiration of the body of the Lord, there is the 3/4 manifestation of God's creation. This part is eternal, everlasting, without deterioration, and unlimited, and it contains the highest perfectional stage of the living conditions. In the Sankhya Kaumudi, it is stated that unalloyed goodness or transcendence is just opposite to the material modes. All living entities, there are eternally associated without any break, and the Lord is the chief and prime entity. In the Agama Puranas also, the transcendental abode is described as follows. The associated members there are free to go everywhere within the creation of the Lord, and there's no limit to such creation, particularly in the region of the 3/4 magnitude. Since the nature of that region is unlimited, there is no history of such association, nor is there end of it. The conclusion may be drawn that because of the complete absence of the mundane qualities of ignorance and passion, there is no question of creation nor of annihilation. In the material world, everything is created and everything is annihilated, and the duration of life between the creation and annihilation is temporary. In the transcendental realm, there is no creation and no destruction, and thus the duration of life is eternal unlimitedly. In other words, everything in the transcendental world is everlasting, full of knowledge, and bliss without deterioration. Since there is no deterioration, there is no past, present, and future in the estimation of time. It is clearly stated in this verse that the influence of time is conspicuous by its absence. The whole material existence is manifested by actions and reactions of elements which make the influence of time prominent in the matter of past, present, and future. There are no such actions and reactions of cause and effects there. So the cycle of birth, growth, existence, transformations, deterioration, and annihilation, the 6 material changes are not existent there. It is the unalloyed manifestation of the energy of the Lord, without illusion, as experienced here in the material world. The whole Vaikunta existence proclaims that everyone there is a follower of the Lord. The Lord is a chief leader there, without any competition for leadership, and the people in general are all followers of the Lord. It is confirmed in the Vedas, therefore, that the Lord is the chief leader, and all other living entities are subordinate to him. For only the Lord satisfies all the needs of all other living entities. Okay. That was a fairly long purport that we read. Yesterday was Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day, and when I was reading this purport, I was just appreciating, Srila Prabhupada for the amount of time and effort he put in to writing these purports and explaining these verses. So really grateful to him for just packing in so much information and explaining a verse to help us understand these scriptures. Okay, so this chapter is entitled, I believe it's entitled Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. And so for context, in the previous chapter in this canto, Parikshit Maharaj had posed many questions, right, and to Sukadeva Goswami, bunch of different kinds of questions he had asked Sukadeva Goswami, and in this chapter, Sukadeva Goswami is beginning to answer those questions by citing different experiences, different times that have taken place. And so in the beginning of this chapter, Sukadeva Goswami begins to describe Lord Brahma's journey. There is that incident where Lord Brahma's, he's sitting on the lotus and he is trying to find out the source of the lotus. Where is this lotus coming from? And so he goes all the way, he tries to go down, he starts to begin his penances. This is like the very beginning of Lord Brahma, right? He starts to begin his penances. And he performs these penances for 1,000 celestial years or something of that sort. And so then the Lord becomes pleased with Lord Brahma's penances, and at that time Lord Brahma is shown this spiritual world and his transcendental nature. The Lord is pleased with Lord Brahma's penances, and so Lord Brahma is getting this the personal abode of Lord Krishna or Vaikunta is becoming visible to Lord Brahma because of this journey that Lord Brahma is on, right? So what we're reading is now Sukadev Goswami describing this whole experience, like through the eyes of Lord Brahma. So what is Lord Brahma seeing in this personal abode of Vaikunta? So Sukadev Goswami is describing through what Lord Brahma is seeing to Parikshit Maharaj. That we're beginning that section of Bhagavatam now. And so today I'm just going to cover one verse of what Lord Brahma sees in Vaikunta, and then the future speakers will cover more in the next few days of what Lord Brahma is seeing in this personal abode of Vaikunta. And so we're just getting a glimpse through Sukadev Goswami, through Lord Brahma, what Vaikunta looks like. And it's amazing how these next few verses describe what that looks like. We're getting a glimpse of what that might look like, right? So I think, I'd sort of, one thing that always comes to my mind is it's inconceivable for us to understand in some ways what Vaikunta looks like. And so when Sukadev Goswami is describing that, we have to understand to some degree and formulate what that might be the case of what Vaikunta might look like. So in this particular verse, Sukadev Goswami outlines three specific qualities of Vaikunta that Lord Brahma saw when he went to see this personal abode of Krishna. So the first quality he calls out in this verse is that the material modes of ignorance and passion don't prevail in the abode of the Lord. And the specific word, the word that he uses is pravartate. It doesn't prevail. It doesn't exist in the abode of the Lord. And he says there is no influence of goodness either. The second point that he calls out is that there's no predominance of the influence of time. What to speak of the illusory energy. And we'll discuss later why that's such an important thing, that there's no influence of time in Vaikunta. And the last point that he makes is that without discrimination, both demigods and demons worship the Lord as devotees. So those are the three separate points that he's choosing to describe Vaikunta by, right? So one is there's no material modes of ignorance and passion. There's no influence of time, and that without discrimination, everyone worships the Lord, no matter who you are. You're worshiping the Lord in Vaikunta. So, if you look at the purport, what I want to discuss first maybe is Prabhupada spends a good amount of time describing the physical description of Vaikunta, like how vast it is. So we'll discuss that a bit. Talk a bit about the material modes of nature, this influence of time aspect, and then finally these transcendental qualities in Vaikunta. And this will just, again, launch us into understanding what Vaikunta might look like. And the speakers in the future days will further describe these qualities of Vaikunta. Okay, so Srila Prabhupada begins with describing, he calls it the kingdom of God, or the atmosphere of Vaikunta. He says it's Tripad Vibhuti. It's 3 times bigger than the material universes. And so I'm just trying to take a moment to understand that. So he says this universe contains billions of stars and planets, right? One given universe contains billions of stars and planets. And that's just one universe, right? One universe has those billions of stars and planets. But then there's billions of universes that also exist. And when you cluster all of them together, that's called this portion of Mahatattva. And Prabhupada is saying that all these millions and billions of universes combined only make up 1/4 of the Lord's creation. The rest 3/4 of his creation is the spiritual world. So what we see through our telescopes are the 9 planets, the one sun, the stars in the galaxy. But Prabhupada is saying that this is just a very small portion of it. And I wanted to share this image to understand some glimpse of it. This image that I'm sharing is something that I would always see in growing up in Premananda Mataji's house when I used to go as a kid. I would always see this image in her house, and so it always stuck with me. But you can see that this is not the best picture, but you can see that in each, through the pores of Vishnu, right? In each bubble that comes out when he breathes, in each bubble, that's one universe, and in each universe there are all these planets that are there. So you can see in each of that bubble in each of universe, there are the full range of planets that exist, the material planets, and then there's the spiritual portion of the world. And so like that, there's uncountable, number of bubbles like that, right? That exist when he's breathing in and out, Vishnu. And so Prabhupada is spending that time to describe in the purport how vast that creation is. And so the question is that why is he describing all this? Why is Prabhupada describing the magnanimity of how big the universe is? It's to make a point that God's creation is innumerable. You can't count it and say this is the limit of it, right? Again, what we see through our telescopes is a very small portion of it. Beyond that, there's billions of universes, and all that is just 1/4 of his creation. There's a whole 3/4 that we don't even know, and we don't even know the full 1/4 of it. And Prabhupada is saying that there's also the spiritual sky, and beyond the spiritual sky, there are the spiritual planets that sort of continue to exist there. So let's be honest, it's hard for us to comprehend how large all this is. And then Prabhupada says, okay, fine, we can't comprehend this, right? It's so vast. Fine. We can't even count how many leaves there are on a given tree. We can't even count how many hairs there are on a given person's head. Like you literally, no scientist can count exactly how many hairs there are on someone's head. And even then, there's foolish men who think, or who are puffed up with this idea of that I'm God. So that's the point Prabhupada is making. Look how vast this creation is. We can't understand that. We can't even count the leaves on a tree. We can't even count the small thing as the number of hairs in someone's head. And people are thinking that they can be God. So that's the first thing that Prabhupada is establishing. Before we even begin to understand Vaikunta, let's first understand that we can't even count the simple things in life. And so he's sort of establishing the Lord's innumerable creation in that sense. And to be clear, Prabhupada is saying that the God's creation is unlimited. There's nothing that he can, there's a limited aspect to it, basically. And then Prabhupada talks about the futile attempts to go to the moon. And in this recent day and age, as you all know, there's a lot of news and talk and investments about going to space. And while to some degree they've had, there's been some advancement there, I think an important point that Srila Prabhupada is calling out in this purport is not just making it to the moon, but then the ability to stay there. We often hear that it's one thing to, start a new job. It's one thing to start something new, but it's a whole different thing to maintain that, whatever you started, whether it be your sadhana or whatever that might be. And so Prabhupada is, calling out this futile futile attempt to not just make it to the moon, but to actually be able to maintain whatever we find on the moon. And so he's saying, Prabhupada is saying, look, instead of trying to do these 100 different things, instead of trying to comprehend all this, he's saying, look, it's just best to follow the Vedic instructions instead. It's best to just abide by the Vedic instructions provided in the Bhagavatam, and to follow that. And best of all, that instead of trying to understand all these things through a minuscule telescope, all this exists in the Bhagavatam. It's already described in great detail. So Prabhupada is sort of emphasizing that point that Srimad Bhagavatam carries all that information. And I think this part of the report is just important to accept, so we can even begin to appreciate what Vaikunta might look like. So far Prabhupada has only talked about the parts of the material creation, this spiritual creation, but unless we have this understanding, we can't even begin to understand what Vaikunta might be like. And this verse only has 3 points. There's unlimited descriptions of Vaikunta beyond this. Okay, so the first quality that is being talked about is the fact that the modes of passion and ignorance don't exist in Vaikunta. So the specific term that's used here is Mishram, right? So the verse the verse here says, Sattvam cha Mishram nachakala vikrama. And so there's a very specific reason why the term Mishram is used. Mishram means mixture, right? The literal meaning here means mixture. And so it's saying that the modes of ignorance and passion don't mix with goodness. And the reason, again, there's a reason why this term Mishram, or mixed, this meaning mixed, is being used. The point is being made here that in Vaikunta, there's pure goodness that's present. There's no contamination there's no mixing of passion and ignorance. And the reason it's being said like that is because it's not so binary in the material world. Actually, in the material world, there's the mode of ignorance, there's the mode of passion, but there's the mode of goodness that's actually mixed with passion and ignorance. And so that's why this term Mishram is being talked about, because there's no such thing in the material world when we're just in the mode of passion, just in the mode of ignorance, or just in the mode of goodness. There's constant interactions that are happening with each other in these 3 modes. And so the point that's being made here by Sukadeva Goswami, or what Lord Brahma is seeing with his own eyes, is that there's no mixture of passion and ignorance in Vaikunta. It's pure, it's clean. And so that's where the term Mishram is being used here. So when one is not in the modes of ignorance and passion, one is supposed to be situated in the mode of goodness in the material world. But that's not how it works. There's contamination in that mode of goodness by these touches of passion and ignorance. But in Vaikunta Lok, it's said it is unalloyed goodness only. And so why is that so important? Because it's saying that the mode of ignorance is what influences a living entity to have this habit of lust and hankering. And so that means that because there's no ignorance in Vaikunta, the residents of Vaikunta, living entities, are free from lust and hankering, because ignorance causes lust and hankering. And then there's that verse, right, in Bhagavad Gita, that in chapter 2, that describes how you get to lust and hankering. It begins with attachment, which leads to lust, which leads to anger, which then leads to delusion, loss of memory, loss of intelligence, and then you fall down. That's sort of the sequence that in chapter 2 it's described in that way. So this is saying that there's no mode of ignorance, so there's no chance of that attachment, lust, anger, that whole cycle from from happening. And again, because there's no mishram of ignorance and passion with goodness. The next aspect that Prabhupada spends to that he talks about here is the aspect of time. He's saying that there's no predominance of the influence of time. So what to speak of the illusory energy? And again, the term that's described here to talk about that is Kala Vikrama. Kala is time, and this term Vikrama means influence. It's always amazing to me how these very specific terms are used, and there's a reason behind it. Vikrama here means influence because it's in the form of time is how the Lord controls the material world. If there's no time, there's no movement of the modes of nature. Time is what drives the modes to act. Like if there's no time, the modes are stuck. They're not interacting with each other, so to speak. And time is what makes things change in our life also, right? In fact, in Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 11, Krishna says, "Time I am the destroyer of the worlds, and I've come here to destroy all people. With the exception of you, the Pandavas, all the soldiers here on both sides will be slain." And so it's Prabhupada is saying that time is what makes that movement happen. In Vaikunta, there's no Vikrama, there's no influence of time. And because there's no influence of time, the modes aren't interacting with each other, and things aren't changing the way they do in the material world. And so in the spiritual world, time cannot even enter, is what it's being described. And so this illusory energy is a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. But again, it doesn't have an entrance in Vaikunta Lok. And finally, the Prabhupada is making this point that the material creation to the Lord of the Lord may be an illusion to the non-devotee, but to a devotee, they look at the spiritual creation as a manifestation of his external energy, of the Lord's external energy. So these two qualities that we just discussed, this pure goodness, there's no aspect of time. These are foundational pieces of what makes Vaikunta Vaikunta. These are like the structural things that Brahma is seeing, right? Lord Brahma is seeing when he first walks into Vaikunta. I think one thing that can be sort of asked here is, so, in the material world, if there's no pure goodness, there's always this tinge of passion and ignorance. How are you supposed to go to the mode of, how do you transcend above that specifically? And that's where this aspect of association is so important. When you're associating with other devotees, you do have that glimpse when you have that moment's association with a sadhu, you do get that glimpse of pure goodness with no tinge of passion and with no mixture of passion and ignorance. But that glimpse can maybe help us appreciate what the extreme vastness of Vaikunta might be like. So then Prabhupada goes on to describe these wonderful transcendental qualities in Vaikunta. He's saying that Vaikunta atmosphere is enriched with numerous transcendental qualities. He says that these transcendental qualities are revealed to us when we do devotional service of the Lord. And these transcendental qualities are very distinct from from the mundane qualities of ignorance, passion, goodness. And again, those are further described in the upcoming verses. Like, what are those transcendental qualities that he's talking about? So another aspect of it, of this, is that in the material world, everything is created and then everything is annihilated. And so the duration between creation and annihilation is temporary. in the transcendental realm in Vaikunta, there is no creation and no destruction. So the duration of life is eternal. And again, the key term here being used is unlimited. There's unlimitedness to the aspect of that time in Vaikunta. And so another very structural foundational piece here is that in the material world, there's this concept of there's action and reactions, right? That take place, this form of karma that we talk about. And that's what causes this aspect of past, present, future. You do something in the present, and there's some karmic reaction for that in the material world and in the future. And then there's your past karma that's there. But again, in the spiritual world, there's no aspect of this. There's no past, present, future. Sort of time kind of stands still in some degree. And so then Prabhupada is talking about that this marginal line between the material manifestation and spiritual manifestation is called this Viraja river, right? And it's this transcendental current flowing from the perspiration of the body of the Lord. And then again, there's this 3/4 creation of God, which is all spiritual creation. And so Prabhupada is saying that this part is eternal, everlasting, and he keeps on saying in the purport that it's without deterioration. So oftentimes we're used to looking at life where there's something new or something the way it exists, but then it deteriorates over time. It regresses in quality. It loses its potence. It changes. It gets perhaps worse, sometimes better. And so Prabhupada is choosing this word very carefully, this aspect of deterioration, that it's not deteriorating over time. It's staying everlasting. And finally, Prabhupada says that all living entities that are there in this spiritual world are eternally associated without any break. And the Lord is the chief and prime entity, right? So in the third aspect of this verse, Sukadeva Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj through the eyes of Lord Brahma that, without any discrimination, everyone is worshiping the Lord. And Prabhupada is saying the Lord is the chief prime entity there's no debate of who's the Supreme Lord, which is often the debate in material creation. It's often the debate within religions that this God is more superior than this God. But in Vaikunta, there's no question of that. So Prabhupada makes these specific distinctions between the transcendental world and the material world, just for us to understand what Vaikunta might look like here. I was just thinking about this specific aspect of that there's this quality of hankering and lust that develops when you're in the mode of ignorance, and how that's non-existent in the spiritual world. And that's so essential, because that lust and hankering is what drives us and what makes us go in different directions oftentimes in our lives. And so how wonderful it is that when that doesn't exist, you can actually be focused in going towards a supreme goal. And it just sort of kept reminding me of that. We're in this Karthik time, this festive time, and there's an opportunity for us to try to somewhat experience and take association of each other, of other devotees, because we see each other so often. And that is one of the many critical ways to, bypass and sort of get a glimpse of what it is like to be in a good association. And so that was just sort of my personal realization that although we're not experiencing Vaikunta here in any way, we can only try to appreciate what it might look like through the association of devotees and through hearing scripture. Just reading this verse, there's so much vast description of that, and so we can only begin to sort of appreciate by reading this and how essential it is to read and associate. Otherwise, you can't even start to experience that. So those are the main things I wanted to share from this verse. Like I said, the next few verses continue to describe Vaikunta more in detail, but I'll pause here and ask for any further comments or any additions that other devotees might want to make here that I might have missed. Thank you for listening. Any comments? If no comments, then we can wrap it up, Prabhu, here then.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Nice. So
Thank
one
you.
is the if I just one is there are no time existing, right? There are no modes.
Yeah.
One more thing you said. 1 second. Modes, no time. Yeah. So then the no lust, right?
Yeah. So the three are there's no mode of ignorance and passion in the spiritual world. There's no
In
influence
the
of
mode of
time.
goodness, also not the material mode, right, Prabhu? I mean the pure goodness, that's Suddha Sattva, right?
Yeah.
That,
So the way I read it is that there is pure goodness in the spiritual world. So the pure goodness is present in the spiritual world. There's no mix of ignorance and passion in the spiritual world. And then there's no influence of time. The third point that this verse has, that without discrimination, demigods and demons worship the Lord as devotees.
how does demons exist there?
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. Yeah, I was wondering the exact same thing. I don't know if others have anything to comment on that.
I was about to say the same thing. Demigods and demons exist. I don't want to speculate, but I have been thinking about it. And I was wondering if, I'm not sure if my mental speculation, I should even say, but I was wondering if it is like Prahlad Maharaj or Bali Maharaj or such personalities. I don't know if that is being hinted at in there. And even if it is so, let us say if that is the case, then how can you call, I mean, the moment we call someone as a demon is someone who does not worship the Lord. So it's not like everyone in the demon so-called title is not a devotee either. This is something, it's even though the classification demons and demigods, so it is implied that way. But if this sentence, if it really means demigods and demons exist worshipping the Lord, then if it is true that what is implied is such personalities, and if so, how can anyone call them as demons anymore? Because they are already in a position of worship of the Lord. I don't know if anyone has got any comments on that.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. From what Mataji said, I was just thinking, there exists the lamb and the lion lie together in the spiritual world. Is that a common kind of understanding, Mataji? I mean, like, there exists all species of life, but they are in, the tiger is not charging at the deer or something. Is that how it is? I wonder.
I mean,
Same
again,
way.
all of that is, I mean, just like I'm speculating, this is also speculation, but I don't understand that, because then even if, let us say, if it's not about a tiger or anything, it is, even if it is really about the real demons, real demon meaning what? That means even a demon has got divine qualities. We know that demons do have divine qualities. There are such personalities, like demoniac characters, like, I mean, Vritrasura, even though he was not a demon, I mean, he was a devotee. And there are so many who are Prahlad Maharaj's lineage. And so, no, I mean, how can they even be called as demons anymore?
One more thing was coming to my mind, that that Krishna kills a demon every day at around noon. So that is his pastime. So that has to be a demon, right? So I was wondering about that also at this time. Sorry, Mataji, if I
No,
made
even if he killed those demons, we know that generally speaking, they merge into the Brahmajyoti effulgence. Other than some specific demon like Putana, who attained the position of a mother, and that's also said. If that's the case, still, all the demons that are killed don't exist in Vaikunta planet.
Okay.
Yeah, when I read this,
And also, but
go ahead, Prabhu.
no, I was thinking to the point about the demons exist in the spiritual world. They really, I mean, the demons doesn't exist if I remember. I mean, but this verse says so. Then there is a feeling of Krishna killing those demons, right? The devotees feel to get the attachment to Krishna. But I don't remember the Sanskrit word to that, right? There is a bhava of Krishna killing those demons. But really, actually, if I remember correctly, the really demons doesn't exist. But there is a feeling that the devotees feel protected by the Lord, right? So.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that demons don't exist, and that's a
Yeah.
fact.
That's right.
And yet demons and devotees worship the Lord there, which makes one think that whoever it is, those personalities, they may be coming from a category of demons, but they don't carry, they carry divine qualities, because one who does not carry divine quality cannot exist in the Vaikunta planet. Without divine qualities, how can anyone be there in the Vaikunta planet? And then I was just thinking, the term demon could be used, it is used because someone who may belong to that category can exist in Vaikunta planet because they are also capable of carrying divine quality. So in our mind, the time we hear, as soon as we hear the word demon, we think that is of someone who cannot ever become a devotee of the Lord, which is not true. Bali Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Vritrasura, there are so many others who are devotees of the Lord. In fact, even like Varuna, and all, they are serving the Lord in various capacities. And so it's not like the thinking I'm having is like a demon can be a devotee from all those examples. But then why call them demon once they are over there?
Yes, Mataji. The same thing, I think the example that you gave, Rudrasura. So he's not a demon, but he was having a demon-like kind of body. So that's why it's called demon, but he's not really a demon. It's calling him as a demon is a wrong thing. So
Yeah, he's
Bhagavatam
yeah, but at least that's happening here in the
here,
material
yeah,
realm.
that's right.
But we are talking about spiritual realm, right? So I don't know whether that terminology is used with a different purpose, such as a person belonging to that so-called category of demon is also existing there, not as a demon, but as a devotee. I mean, of course, certainly no demon can exist there unless one is
Yeah.
one has those devotional quality. One cannot reach Vaikunta planet. But then, Prabhupada never uses words without thinking, which means that yes, it is to show that some personalities in the category of demon can still be belonging to the category of divine.
Yeah.
So to emphasize that, I don't know whether that's why that two words are used simultaneously, divine and demoniac. Other than that, what is the purpose? They can just be said that all the devotees are worshipping the Lord. That's not what it is said, right?
Asura,
I
both.
don't-
Hare Krishna Mataji, but here in the sloka itself, if we say, we take that demon and devta means sur, asur, we make distinction that because the sura, they worship the god, asura,
Yeah.
they didn't. But now
Yeah.
the verse itself says that sura, asura, archita, without
Yeah.
discrimination,
Yeah.
both the demigod and the demon worship the Lord.
Worshipping. Yes.
If the
Correct.
demon worship the Lord, in
Then
what
that's
our
my
standing?
point.
Yeah.
That's the point. That's the point. The point is that the demon is worshipping the Lord, which means
They are not demon.
he's no longer a demon.
Yeah.
But the word is specifically used, and this, I am thinking that it could be to indicate that that distinction, which is there in the material realm, is no longer there. But there are personalities who may be called as demons, but they are capable of functioning like a devata, demigod. And so just to bring that, it enhances the whole description of Vaikunta. It's not like belonging to certain category of people. It belongs to all categories, whether it is a demon or demigod, or even, like Sandhya was saying, the tiger or whatever, all type of other living entities. Along with that, it's not like only the that which belongs to a certain category of entities. So demons are also capable of becoming the Lord's.
Yeah. But basically, if we see that we are not the body, means if we go to the Vaikunta over there or Goloka, still we keep that distinction. Okay, over there I was Radhikandas or I was this and that. So
I don't think there is any distinction.
yeah.
There is no such distinction there. But the word used,
Word says it is Sura.
the word used is very specific,
Yeah.
and it makes you think that demons can be devotees. That was my point.
A demon can be the devotee. That's we say whole Prahlad Maharaj, and they are from there. So, but it is in the material world, means even Vatrasur also came as a Rakshasa over there, means, and he was a devotee like that. But in the spiritual world, it's something.
It is an interesting thought in any case. I don't know. These are all mental speculation one shouldn't do, I guess. I'm sure there may be a answer
We'll
somewhere.
find that. Yeah.
Yeah, there was no comment on this in the purport. I was specifically looking for this, but Prabhupada didn't make a comment on this one. Yeah.
We'll look maybe some other books. Bhagavad Subodh.
Yeah.
Using Prabhu's book.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Have a
so much.
great
Hare Krishna.